Unexpected events, I also call miracles. I sometimes call unexpected events miracles that turn out to be blessings. This topic came to me because of the sermon on 12 March in the church on Jesus turning water into wine. What Jesus did was a blessing for the groom and his guests, and they were now receiving the best wine. There are many stories in the Bible about unexpected events that brought about a blessing, and that's one that you will hear today. Then I heard that Russian soldiers were kidnapping Ukrainian children and taking them to Russia to indoctrinate them. That made me think of an Old Testament story of a little girl kidnapped by Syrian soldiers and taken back to Damascus. She showed courage. She showed faith in God and was not afraid to share her faith. Her faith in God is wrapped up in Psalm 37:5. Listen to these words. Commit your way to the Lord, trust also in him, and he will bring it to pass. Life was not good in Israel. Under Jezebel, they were worshiping false gods. That's with a small g. Then Syria was a problem as they sent soldiers to raid Israel from time to time. Let's say at one time that the women were at the well drawing water when the Syrian soldiers came upon them. The women fled to safety, but a soldier on horseback scooped up this young girl of the story in 2 Kings 5. She had to cry, I'm sure, and be afraid of what was going to happen to her. She struggled to be free, but lost her freedom from her family, her friends, and country as she was taken to Damascus. She was turned over to the commander of the Syrian army and his wife, and she became an enslaved maid. Put yourself in her sandals. Would you be afraid? Would you lose your basic faith in the God of Israel? Would you want to bring about a blessing to the now master of your teenage life? In 1968, Elizabeth and I and our two children, ages 12 and 9, were taken from a nice life in Virginia and told we were going to work and live in Ethiopia. It turned out to be a blessed 3 years for the Kerr family. Those are some of the things that happened in the lives of Elizabeth and myself. The maid from Israel looked at her Syrian master, a rough and tough commander of the armed forces, and saw that he had leprosy. The Bible doesn't say how long it was before she had trust in the commander's wife, but she had the courage one day to tell her she knew of a possible solution to her husband's leprosy. All we know is that this young girl had not forgotten the God of Israel and his prophets. In 2 Kings 5, verse 3, she says to the commander's wife, "If only my master was with God's prophet in Samaria, he would heal him of his leprosy." Wow! What faith! What courage! Not only did the commander's wife listen, but also Naaman, the commander. He talked with the Syrian king, who then wrote a letter to the Israeli king that you may see him healed. That's in verse 6. Naaman goes to Israel in his chariot with silver, gold, and changes of clothes, suitable gifts to honor a king. When the king of Israel reads the letter, he says, "Am I God to heal him of his leprosy?" That's in verse 7. Naaman is sent to Elisha the prophet, who knows not only the God of Israel could heal Naaman of his leprosy. That's in verse 8. Elisha offered the solution to Naaman. Go and wash in the Jordan River 7 times, and you will be made clean. That's in verse 10. But what happened? Naaman became furious at the suggestion and left in a fit of anger. That's in verse 11. Question: why was Naaman so angry? How would you describe his attitude? I thought of Naaman being a commander who gave orders, not obey orders. He went. He was going to get in his chariot and go back to Damascus. But the aides of Naaman knew differently. They said, "The prophet has told you something great." That's in verse 13. It reminds me of last week's weekly word remark by a young man who turned his life over to Jesus Christ. The aides could have said what that young man said. "We're not sure, but only trust and obey Elisha." Naaman listened to his aides, returned to Elisha, and then washed in the Jordan River 7 times and was healed of his leprosy. Naaman then said these words to Elisha, and they are very, very important words. Listen to them. "Indeed, now I know there is no God in all the earth except in Israel." Naaman had just experienced the mighty power of the true God of Israel. That's in verse 15. Could you do what that young girl did? Her example can inspire us today. I like to say there is no age limit to faith in God through Jesus Christ. So what have you learned about this young girl's story? Her story of faith and courage changed the heart of a mighty man of great influence in Syria. It gets me, however, that no more is said about her in the Bible. She trusted God as we should trust God in all circumstances in each of our lives. All you have to do is trust and obey, because there's no other way to be happy in Jesus but to trust and obey. God bless you and have a good week.